What's up, guys? This is Mike with AOR Podcast. We have a interview that we're doing today with Crystal Cravens. Crystal, how you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad we're getting this done finally. I've been looking forward to this. We want to obviously the world's a weird place right now. We want to get your take on it.
Well, I appreciate you guys working with me and taking time to speak with me today. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. So let's go ahead and get started. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from, and just kind of who you are as a person?
My name is Crystal. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, born and raised there. I joined the military in 2005. I was stationed in Georgia, New York, and then my final duty station was at Fort Carson, where I ETS'd in 2009. I have a 7-year-old son who is also autistic. I have a pug and I have a cat. I love cats. I'm the quote-unquote crazy cat lady. I have 17 tattoos. I love to sing. I love reading. I love writing. And I consider myself a very socially conscious person. The word activist gets thrown around a lot, and I try to say that I want to be socially present and in the moment because I am one individual who is a member of my community that is simply trying to affect change and draw attention to issues that are happening on a national as well as a global scale and affect change in a positive and effective way.
So that's awesome. And what community is that, if you don't mind saying?
Oh, I currently am residing in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It's beautiful.
I haven't made it down. I drove through it on my way up here. I'm in northern Denver, but I didn't get a chance to see it. I'll have to make a way back down there. But no way, you have a pug?
Yes, I have a pug. His full name is Henry Philip Hank McCoy. He is named after an X-Man. If those of you that are nerds like me,
Beast,
then you
right?
know he's named after the Beast.
Yes.
So
He doesn't have blue fur, does he?
he should, but he's small. He's only a year and a half old, and he's fantastic. I love him.
Well, I think you need to buy a lab coat and some dye, and you have you have a good Halloween costume for next year.
Exactly. And my cat, by the way, is named Sergeant Martin Riggs. So he's named after. Yeah, yes.
That's hilarious. No, I have a pug too. I'm a recent pug owner. I adopted my pug from an animal shelter about maybe 3 months ago. I named her Ellie after Eleanor Rigby for the Beatles. But anyway, moving on. So you mentioned activism. So what activist groups do you belong to?
I work with several different groups. I'm a pretty intersectional person. So, I have done work with Black Lives Matter. I have done work with United We Dream. I've done work with currently right now. My main focus is with Common Defense PAC. We are a group of veterans. We are all from different walks of life. We all have served our country different mediums. Like we're all from different branches. We have Air Force, Navy, Marines, Army. All of us are different. We all are different ethnicities. However, all of us are using our veteran status to try to level the playing field and say, hey, I know that we were patriots and we are patriotic and we served our country, but also we understand that this country is not perfect. We are a great nation and we have some amazing things that we have achieved. However, there is still a lot of room for change and for advocacy. So we are a group of veterans that are trying to affect change nationwide. So currently my main focus is with Common Defense PAC.
Got it. And I'm sure we'll touch on this again later, but I like the idea of different walks of life, colors, races, genders, all that coming together, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. But seeing that type of collaboration is a great thing. We were talking on last week's episode about how Standing Rock had 2 wins that week. The Army Corps of Engineers rejected the easement. So that was one win, but I really think the other win was the veterans that showed up to join that standoff. It's honestly, it's a beautiful thing which you can get accomplished when everybody stands together. So sticking with Black Lives Matter, which is one of the more well-known groups that you mentioned, and kind of a hot button with some people. What I really want to do is get an activist perspective, I know what Black Lives Matter means to me, and I know what it means to a few other people. But for somebody that is actually involved in that, I want to get your opinion. I want to start off by asking if there was a specific event that that propelled you into activism, not necessarily Black Lives Matter or anything in particular, but was there an event that made you want to get involved and do something more than just share your opinions on Facebook like the rest of the people in between, photos of their food and stuff?
Yes. For me, it was very difficult to get spring, like to get my start in activism because I was trying to find in my local community people that I could lean on that could guide me and show me what I had to do. It was after Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. They were both unfortunately murdered at the hands of police forces. I continued to see these African American individuals murdered on the news, and I kept getting tagged in these images and these graphics that were horrifying to me. I saw it and I make posts that are very strong worded. I'm a very vocal person. I'm a very unapologetic individual about my opinions online. And I just got tired because I said, what am I actually doing on a community level? Within my community, that was not even covered on the local news. In Colorado Springs, it was not covered on the local news. So I put it on Facebook. One day I just put on Facebook, hey, we're going to have a prayer vigil. This isn't about anti police. This isn't about anything. This is just about saying, hey, let's not forget their names. My oldest brother, who was murdered when he was 24 years old in Kansas City, Missouri, he died at the hands of another individual in Kansas City, Missouri. But one thing that I will never forget is that people did not remember his name. They just were like, your brother died. So for me, it was important that we did not forget these individuals' names. So we had a prayer vigil in Acacia Park in Colorado Springs. I invited people on my Facebook. I assumed that my friends were going to go. So I thought it was going to be about five of us. We had several hundred people that came out because they said that they were desperate to want to be a part of this movement of change. The local news came out, and this was unfortunately the same day as the shooting in Dallas, where they
Mm-hmm.
had the Black Lives Matter vigil, and then there was the Dallas shooting. And so it was it was good because there were people that were hungry for just some type of physical presence in this movement. And it also was a call to me to an awakening within Colorado Springs. It's very conservative, it's a very laid back area. However, there's still a lot of issues that are going on a national scale that we sometimes turn a blind eye to because it's like, well, if it's not affecting us, but it did. It affected a lot of people that I know. It affected a lot of veterans, people that are family members of police officers that want to say, hey, we're not all like this. It was very important that we had that moment, that we were in that moment present together and united as a community just to remember these individuals' names and acknowledge that we haven't forgotten about them, and no, this isn't okay. And no, these acts do not reflect the entire police force in the United States. These are a reflection of individuals that step outside of the guides of the law. So it was very touching for me to be present with the folks in Colorado Springs during that prayer vigil that we had. And I was very pleased to know that people had a very positive reception of me just being a member of the community. I don't have a long history of doing social activism, but that was like my moment that I said, okay, this is necessary, it's needed, and what I'm doing is important.
Why do you think there is such a divide? And one thing that I think everybody does need to know is this the divide between law enforcement and all minority groups, but sticking with Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. This is not new. It may be new to many because everybody now has a cell phone, but it's not new by any means. But why do you think? Yeah, it's 2016. Why do you think, in your opinion, this divide is still so just obvious, and somehow not obvious to some?
Well, this divide has never gone away. If a lot of people have gotten in their comfort zone and they've gotten to live in this blissful ignorance that these things don't happen. Like you said, we have cell phones, so now we have footage, and still there's this cognitive dissonance of how is it that this is happening. I see that this is happening, but I cannot believe it because it hasn't happened to me. There are people that have privilege. People do not like to acknowledge this privilege. Also, the divide between Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter, this isn't from the police force and citizens, because there's this misconception that police are only white males. That's not true. The police force is populated by people of color and also white males. So when we have these conversations where people try to utilize, well, there was a black officer that shot a black male, so why is it that you're still saying Black Lives Matter? The conversation is not about white police officers versus people of color. This is about the police force being this entity that is completely unchecked, that has been militarized. They have been empowered by the state, local, and federal government to be this entity that is completely unregulated and unchecked. That's what the problem is. It has nothing to do with the races of the individuals that work within this machine. It's a fraternity of individuals that protect their own selves. So when people say Blue Lives Matter, I understand that you're a person, that you're sacrificing your life. You're putting your life on the line every single day. You get up because you want to protect and serve your community and the people that are respectively around you. However, you can take off that uniform when you leave from work. When you're a person of color, you do not have the opportunity to take that off. So absolutely, do Blue Lives Matter? Yes, they do. And there's also this conversation that a lot of people of color are having, is that when police officers are gunned down by middle-aged white men, where are the Blue Lives Matter individuals that are vocal during those moments? It's been over, I think it's between 7 and 10 police officers that have passed away within the last 2 weeks, and we have not heard a single voice from Blue Lives Matter. So my question for people when they're talking about lives mattering, this needs to be a consistent thing. I believe that people's lives matter at all times. There are police officers that risk their lives and they're good individuals. However, these individuals can go into stealth when they're off work. No one knows what they are not. When you're a person of color, you don't have that privilege. So that is why the importance of brown, Black lives mattering is so present and so important right now, because we haven't seen a call for that previously ever. People don't say, oh, we want to make sure that people of color are relevant right now. It's really, let's make sure that we continue to cushion the police force who already are protected amongst themselves.
Understand. You're right. Uniforms come off, and so does skin, but not in a pleasant way. So I completely agree. So can you? There, obviously, there's some people out there that they hear Black Lives Matter, and then all lives matter. Can you explain what's fundamentally, I guess in my opinion, what is fundamentally wrong with that being a response to the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I think when you say all lives matter, you're negating the fact that people of color matter. When I hear people say, someone can say white lives matter, and I say, well, technically, is white a culture? And this is where it gets extremely nuanced. we have Irish Day parades, we have German festivals, we have all these festivals that celebrate white culture. When we talk about Black Lives Mattering, we have to still go back to the fact that our culture and our identities got stripped away when we were brought here. So I think there's this ideal that when people say Black, that we're trying to say that our race is superior. It's not that we're saying that we're superior. Our ethnicity and our heritage was stripped away when we were brought here. So if I knew whether I was from Ghana, the Congo, I would say Ghanaian lives matter, but I don't. All we have is what we know and what we have held on to And we were told we went from being niggers to Negroes, and now we're black. And so now black folks are reclaiming that identity, and we're saying that, hey, we have a relevance, we have importance, we are intelligent, we are fluent, we are articulate, we have a presence in this country. Matter of fact, black women are the most intelligent demographic in this country right now in 2016. So when I'm saying that I matter, I'm not saying that my life has more value than anyone else's. I'm just saying that in relation to where I was and how I came here, you have to understand that I have a purpose more so than being subservient to a person of that has ownership of me. I have a value. My value is more than physical labor and doing the job that nobody wanted. My value is in my presence, my mind, and my state of being, is that I can contribute to the society in more ways than being a servant. So when people are saying Black Lives Matter, initially Black Lives Matter was going to be named Black Lives Matter also. But would that have caught on as well? Unlikely. So when you say Black Lives Matter, you're demanding that someone gives you the acknowledgement and the respect. Because if I say police lives matter, people can say absolutely. Doctors' lives matter, absolutely. Why is it that we have this hang up with Black lives mattering? Is it the only problem is that the black portion of it? Because I can acknowledge that Latinx lives matter, Asian lives matter, Muslims lives matter, trans lives matter, gay lives matter, lesbian lives matter. I can say all these words. The hiccup has only been when we said that Black Lives Matter. I feel like it's a personal challenge to each person who calls themselves a forward thinker to challenge themselves and ask themselves, why does a Black life not matter? So it's not about saying that our lives are the only ones that matter. It's saying include us in this conversation where you're saying that everyone else's lives matter. So our lives matter as well.
That was that's the best way put to that question that I've had. I mean, typically, you know, when we have these conversations, either on the show or in person, it's you know, Black lives do matter. Well, actually, they don't when you have 2.2 million people locked up and they're 13% of our population, yet they're, you know, 2/3 of our prison population. It seems like the prison system kind of replaced slavery. How can we say they matter when that's going on? But that is an answer I've never heard, honestly. Thank you for that. So you know, some of these questions that I'm going to ask you are meant to, they come from sort of ridiculous questions that we've heard, but they're vastly popular. And one of those questions is, so slavery is gone, blacks can vote, we have Barack Obama, unfortunately, only for a little over a month. So we have a black president, and some people believe that racism is an issue of the past. And you know, so why isn't it? You know, what do you think is perpetuating this idea that racism is no longer a thing that anybody's got to deal with? I mean, of course it exists, but you know, you're a master of your own life. If you don't want to deal with racism, then, you know, basically that's on you. What do you say to that?
Well, we have to actually deal in truth. And unfortunately, there is this idea that after the civil rights movement, post civil rights, that everything ended and everything was better and everything was okay. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The reality of it is that racism never existed. It just morphed in its presence. We went from separating people who had the water fountains or, you know, coloreds only, and we have people that are able to go to certain schools and whatnot. So what we have been affected by are the Jim Crow laws, is that we're separate, but we're equal. But during this separation, we got separated, and of course, we were not made equal. People did not view the Negro as equal. People did not view Latinx as equal. People did not view Natives as equal. People did not view Asian Americans as equal. There has always been this division of equality in this country, and it's sad because it's gone from being white, hetero, to now this is also branching into um, white gay, white lesbian, white bisexual, white trans, white intersexual plus. So this isn't just affecting people of color. Now it's breaking off into gender identities. So, yeah, no, it never stopped with the civil rights movement. I understand that we have a black president, but I also understand that if I go back home to Missouri, where I was born and raised, that I'll be called the N word and I'll still be served last. I'll be sat by the bathroom. And this is just a known thing for people from the Midwest slash the South. This is a known thing for people that don't identify as hetero, white, evangelical human beings. This is just a reality for people that have lived a different existence. For people that fall into the hetero, cisgendered individuals, they have to also recognize that this isn't an attack directly on them, but it also requires them to do some self critiquing and say, okay, I understand that I get treated this way, but what about the person to my left and my right? Do they get treated the same way as me? Absolutely not. These things are not new, they've never stopped. We are just having individuals that are bold enough to speak out about them. So, yeah, I understand we have a black president, but just because we have a black president doesn't mean that racism stopped. Just like when Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery, that didn't mean that people stopped being racist. Otherwise, why did the civil rights movement come about? These things don't have any implication of the social constructs that affect people every single day. So I really wish people would dispel these ideologies that just because we have one progressive thing that's happening, that it negates everything else, because that could not be further from the truth.
Yeah, and if you want an example of how big of, I mean, we have to acknowledge the significance of Barack Obama. Of course, that is something to be celebrated. But if you really wanted an example of racism, look at how he's been treated over the last 8 years.
Yes.
I mean, we'll get into politics later, but I mean, we currently have a new regime taking over that is looking to completely erase any trace of anything that he has done. So
Yes.
with the civil rights movement up till now, we've gone from Bull Connors to Jeff Sessions. So it is a very real thing. I'm just wondering though, what is it that what do you think needs to be done about people that probably say, I don't do politics, I don't pay attention to these things, and they feel like racism is at an all-time low, which I mean could be somewhat true, but doesn't need any further attention, and that's only because they aren't in a position to experience that. I mean, if you grow up in Liberalville, San Francisco, and you're not politically engaged, you may have no idea that this is going on. What can we do to help educate people that feel like racism is over, but it's because of their lack of experience and the lack of them witnessing racism firsthand?
Well, the reality of it is that a lot of people that believe that racism is over only have people that look like them in their circles. So if you're in a circle where everybody looks like you and you're a liberal individual that's from San Francisco and you're in the tech world, and all your coworkers and all your friends and your entire neighborhood are white individuals, you need to check yourself and check your privilege, because why is there no one else that's brown in your circle? I understand that people are like, well, I haven't had the opportunity, but why not? Have you deliberately been placing yourself and positioning yourself in places where you would be excluded from being exposed to people of color? This isn't just about, oh, well, I live in this liberal area. So if you call yourself liberal, then why aren't you challenging your mind and challenging your existence to say, but what are other people facing? I know for myself, I grew up in the inner city. I grew up in the quote unquote hood. I know I grew up in an impoverished area. Currently now, I have done these different moves financially, educationally, to get myself out of those places. I moved from where I grew up, and now I live in Colorado, and now I live in a suburb. However, I have not forgotten where I came from. for these individuals that have never lived that life, that have never been affected by their community, they can easily say, well, you know what, it's over because, well, everybody around me. I could say that too, in denial, if I wanted to be in denial and say, hey, well, you know what, I live in the suburbs and everything is great now for me. Just for me, though. This doesn't affect anybody else that is still in the neighborhood that I grew up in. They still live this truth. And so you have to deal in truth. There's a lot of denial and there's a lot of disassociation from realities, because a lot of people that I know that are in liberal circles, and I hope I'm not being offensive, is that they don't want to confront truths. So they'll say, I'm liberal. My grandparents are racist, but they're in that generation. So, I can't help that. Or my uncle is this way, or my cousins are this way. But I have to respect that because they grew up that way. No, it's not over if you can make peace with that and make amends with that and still move forward. No, for a person like me, I still am challenging individuals that I know and say, so how is it that you can respect me, but you can't respect Keisha that's on 12th Street? How is it that you can respect me, but you can't respect Juan who lives on 31st? What is it? What's the difference in living in San Francisco versus living back in my community? Where's the disconnect? So we have to let go of this idea that just because my area, my neighborhood is good means that everything is better, because it's just not true.
Understood. That's an issue that we run into a lot talking to people, whether it's about any type of political conversation on any field. It's, well, trust me, I know Hispanics and they do not work as hard. And it's like, okay, let's say it's true. Maybe the Jose does not work very hard. But I'm sorry, I was not under the impression that Jose represented the rest of the Hispanics and Latinas that we have in this country. It's funny, and I do think liberals do need to be challenged. We've talked about the PC movement being out of control. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? We've spoken about with the Trump and the entire right wing GOP that all 17 of them that ran for president this last primary. PC should never be used as an excuse to be racist or bigoted and then say, oh, your liberal ears just can't handle it. But where do you think, where do you lie on the spectrum of is PC, where PC culture is going? Do you think it's moving? It's obviously moving to the left, but is that a positive direction, or does it need to be tapered off? Does it need to be locked down a little bit more?
Well, I want to go back to what you were saying about this, knowing a lot of liberal people know that one individual and they try to use that one individual as a representative for the entire ethnicity. I think that's one of the things that is one of the most damaging things. We take these one or two individuals that do heinous things, terrible things, and then we try to say, okay, that individual, my favorite word is a thug. They're a thug and they are a criminal and they are bad. And this is why I can justify my ignorance, my hatred, my racism is because of this one individual. However, if you notice, with middle-aged white men, we say that they are a lone wolf. They were an isolated incident. We try to disassociate white males' behavior from the entirety of the ethnicity because why? What is more important about a white male than every other ethnicity? Because we have come to an understanding that we cannot say that this one individual is the totality of everyone else. So why is it that we have such a difficult time doing that with people of color? Because again, we do not value people of color and we do not see people of color as human. We still get looked at as 3/4. And I tell people this all the time. Back during, for folks that are like, what am I talking about? For the 3/4 rule is that we were 3/4 of a human being. During the time of slavery, we were considered 3/4 of a man. So we still get looked at that way. It's like, okay, I can see every white person I know loves Will Smith. Will Smith is great. He is great. But then if you look at Michael Brown, we try to find and we try to demonize everything about him because there were things about him that we could find threatening.
Right.
When you were talking about the whole PC movement, politically correct has turned into this new word and this whole phrase that I get irked by. A lot of people don't like being politically correct because they feel like it demands that they continue to do work to be a good person, because everybody wants to be a good person and I have no problem with that. However, I know people that are like, I can accept lesbians, I can accept gays, but why do I have to keep accepting all these different letters? Like, why should I have to do that? Or for in 2016, when people say Latinx, why should I have to say Latinx? Why can't I say Latino? And it's like, well, do you understand that we're being inclusive? Well, I don't have to continue to educate myself and learn things because I'm, quote unquote, I'm trying. So it feels like it's a constant level of labor that people have to put in to just be a decent human being. There's a lot of people that just don't feel like doing that work. They're just like, you know what? I feel like I'm a nice person. If you have less items than me in checkout, I'll let you get in front of me. If I see you struggling and you're trying to shovel your snow, I'll help you shovel. It's this idea that that's what makes me a good person, not being inclusive or accepting of you as a human being, as a whole individual, of respecting your entirety. That's not there. So being politically correct, it's been a double-edged sword because there are people that understand it and they say, okay, I get what being politically correct means. Not being able to say slurs in 2016. I can't refer to people of color in the slurs that my parents or grandparents may have used. However, I'm not a person that uses those terms. So why can't I just say, everybody is Mexican or Hispanic? And it's like, no. Or if you're referring to minorities, I've heard people say colored people. No, we are people of color.
Right.
So it's difficult for people to continue to grow and educate themselves. And I also want people to understand that are not minorities. I also got talked to about that are underrepresented individuals in this country. We also are learning. I'm also learning as a Black woman how to refer and engage with other individuals. So this just isn't a target to white heterosexual individuals. This is also to people of color as well. I know that I grew up like, it was like, oh, you black, everybody that's brown is black. And it's like, no, you can actually acknowledge someone and show them respect and embrace their identity. And it's just a really great feeling. It's like somebody not knowing your name and somebody saying to you, hey, white boy, hey, white boy, hey, white, and then somebody learning your name and finally acknowledging, hey, Michael. That feels amazing. When you finally get acknowledged and respected as a human being, as a whole person, as your whole self, that is where politically correct has gone off like into this left field because people think that it just means, oh, I've got to like do all this. And all it is literally saying, I respect you and I identify you as a whole human, as a whole person.
So, expanding on the politically correct side, recently, I don't know if you watched Saturday Night Live, but the very first episode that came on after the election when all of us were still crying featured Dave Chappelle as a host, and there was a skit where Chris Rock came on. And Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld, and I believe Chappelle as well, are three very prominent comedians that have stopped playing colleges because people get so offended so easily. But with this sketch, they basically looked at how naive their white friends were as the election results were rolling in. It's like, oh, of course Trump took Kentucky. They're all bigots over there. Wait, he's taking Florida too? So that was part of the skit. But they basically said that America has always been racist to them, and now the rest of us are finally seeing that firsthand. Is this... was that, how fair of an assessment is that for all people of color, but specifically African Americans in America? And we'll get to the follow-up question after that. But how accurate was that skit? Do you know the skit I'm talking about?
I do know the one where everybody was freaking out saying, How did this happen? I laughed extremely hard because that was the reaction of all my friends. Was they were like, "Well, how is it that this is happening? And how is it that people don't understand what is going on? And how is it that people don't see this as racist?" And in all reality, I was laughing, saying, "Really?" Like, in my heart, I was like, "Are you kidding me that you didn't know that America was racist up until 2016? Are you serious?" I've shared stories about incidences that have happened to me and my family, and it was magically accurate for me.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. It was fantastic because this is circling back to the whole liberal idea that, oh my God, like, we should be better than this. And I live in this liberal community, and everyone that I personally know in my individual direct circle, or in the words of everyone that criticizes me, inside of my echo chamber, I hear the same thing, that everything is supposed to be good. It's good, and it's not bad, and that people don't discriminate against people anymore. But again, if you're not directly in communication with a person of color, you really can't understand or see how things might or might not be for people of color. I had a friend that talked to me, and I hate to go on this tangent, but I had a friend that talked to me, and they said that they felt like, as a white person, they spoke out more against racism than their friends who are people of color. And so I countered that and I said, "You're talking about posting on Facebook. I'm talking about when I go to the grocery store, and I go to the same grocery store every single day. I live in this neighborhood. I go to the same grocery store. It's the same lady in checkout, and she asks me every time I swipe my card, am I sure that I can afford it? Every single day.
Oh my! Wait,
This
is
is
this
the stuff.
is this a current story?
This is a current story in 2016.
Oh my! All right.
Are you sure that you can afford it? When I go to pick up my ex-husband was Filipino and Mexican, and he was very fair skinned. So my son is white passing. I get carded, like, for my ID, even though I'm the one that enrolled my son. I can drop him off in the morning. I still get asked if my son is my own child in 2016. Even though there's people that are like, "Oh, I just sent my aunt up to the school and they just picked up my kids." They're not on the list, and I'm like, you don't realize that this is, again, a portion of your privilege. Also, when I'm in Colorado Springs, I've gotten pulled over. I told people this. I've gotten pulled over 5 times this year. There was this one experience where my car got searched, and I was so confused. And I had on my badge, I had on dress clothes and all this stuff, and I was like, "What is my car being searched for?" And the guy was like, "Well, I don't understand why you have a green car and what you're doing." Okay. So for people of color, like, look, this is our life. This is our reality. And just because I don't talk about it every day, because at the end of the day, if I talk to people about the stuff and the BS that I deal with Monday through Sunday, every single day, it sounds like I am, quote unquote, beating the same dead horse. It sounds like I am rehashing these things over and over again. And it sounds like I'm making a bigger deal out of things than what they are. But the reality of it is that, yeah, these things still happen. And when I saw that skit, I was tickled because my friends, who I've told my friends about this stuff, and they're like, "Well, maybe they thought this." They try to justify it. They try to dismiss it or minimize it. And the reality is that, no, why are these things not happening to you? Why is it that your people of color that you know, your friends, can tell you these stories? They're horrifying stories. None of us want to keep rehashing this stuff over and over again. We can tell it because it happens and it's a regular occurrence. So for me, the fact that Donald Trump got elected, I wasn't surprised. I knew that it was going to happen. I was trying everything that I could to ensure that he didn't, but I knew that it would, because he was appealing to that side of this country that everyone denies exists, but is still very, very prominent and very present.
Do you? I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on green cars. So now we gotta worry. We gotta worry about cars of color now. Hate crimes against Mitsubishis and.
Hey, there it is.
So
I have I have a crazy story about that driving to Missouri for my grandmother's funeral. I'll just say it really quick. So me and my brother were driving to my grandmother's funeral. I have a green Kia Soul, so I have a little hamster car. Driving
Nice.
to Kansas City, Missouri, and we just came out of Colorado. We hit Colby, Kansas, and we got pulled over. And it was daytime when we hit Colby, Kansas, and the police officer that pulled us over, he came to my side of the car. We were the only ones on the highway. He came to my side of the car, so I was on the passenger side. My brother was driving. He came to the passenger side of the car and he asked me what I was doing and where I was going. And I said, actually, my grandmother died and we're on the way to her funeral. Um, this is really traumatic. Like, my grandmother is like a pillar in our family. And so I'm like explaining this. And so I see him, I was in the military. So I was looking at him and I see him unholster his weapon. And I said, what did you do that for? And he was like, you need to get out the car. And I said, but what did I do? And he was like, take out your paperwork. And I was like, I don't want to move my hands because I just saw you unholster your weapon. So I'm not going to do that right now. So my brother was like, come over to my side of the car. You're talking to me. I'm the driver. Were we speeding? What was the issue? And so both of us have our hands up. This goes on for about 45 minutes. And then he ends up pulling his weapon. He draws his weapon on us and he said, why do you have a green car driving from Colorado? You're obviously transporting drugs. So this went on for close to, it went on for an hour and a half. He went back to his cruiser. He came back. He refused to look at any of my paperwork, that I had insurance and my car is registered, that, I had my military ID, and I'm like, I'm a veteran. None of that mattered. There were two black people in a car that were in a green car coming from Colorado driving towards Kansas. And so we got detained for over an hour and a half. And I will never forget that. That happened a couple of years ago, but me and my brother got detained in my green car coming from Kansas.
Was this
Coming
the
from
same
Colorado.
green car that you got pulled over in the first
Yes.
in a
So,
Kia Soul? It's not like
in a
you're
Kia
rolling
Soul.
down the street in your 6'4" Impala. I mean, that would
No.
be profiling too, but a Kia Soul? I don't think a drug dealer of any race would be caught dead in something. Could you imagine? It sounds like a Key and Peele skit.
And I had personalized plates too. So this is like, why would I do anything in
And
that?
I'm gonna guess that your personalized plates doesn't say roll one up, right?
They did not. They actually have my last name on them. Of all things, they have my last name.
Well, your last name is Craven, so what are you craving? I don't know, maybe.
I mean, something. So yeah, that was a thing. And so that's like, when I talk to my friends about like stuff that people of color experience, like, I'm like, these are things that happen. And I have a really good friend who, he's got his degree and he's like, he wears a suit every single day. And he had told me he gotten pulled over because he went to a college down south. He got pulled over 30 times
Jeez.
within the year. And I was like, for what? He was like, we don't speed. And I said, yeah, I know we don't speed. Of course, if you speed, you're a target. Like, yeah, we don't speed. And he was like, I got pulled over. I've gotten pulled out of my car. I've gotten searched. And this is just a reality. And if I sat and I talked about this every single time that these things happened, people would start to feel like that I was making up these stories. And even now, when we have video of these things happening, people say, well, we don't know what happened before.
Cameras
We
can be
don't.
so tricky.
Yes.
That's one that I keep hearing. Well, camera angles.
Yeah.
So
it's
no.
just a thing.
So green cars, my God. Anyway, so let's go into politics a little bit. Do you mind going over your voting record a little bit?
I don't mind at all.
All right. Did you vote for Obama?
Yes, I voted for President Obama twice.
Both times? Okay. So just before I bring up what crushes our world, let's go back to that time when everything looked like it was moving in a very progressive direction, prior to November 8th of this year. What was it like? Just I kind of a win for one minority is kind of a win for all, in my opinion. I mean, any progress is good progress. So as a veteran, as a mother with a child that's gonna grow up in this world, and as an African American female, what walk me through your emotions, rather whether it be election night of 2008 or inauguration night of 2009. What was that like?
I should go back and say, okay, so my mom like was on the train from day one. When he announced he was running for president, she was canvassing, making phone calls, and I was like, I'm really just not that excited about any of this, but okay. And she was like, you guys got to get on board. He's going to be the next president. And I was like, I'm really just not there yet. And I remember after I had my son, I had I went back home to Missouri and I was watching the DNC. So I'm watching everyone give their speeches. And I just remember him talking about the military and how important the military was. And I can't remember the speech exactly, but I just remember I was sitting there and I'm crying because at the time my husband was deployed. And he was talking about how we're going to end the wars and all this other stuff. And everybody else at that time was like, the wars are good. This is important. And we need to continue to like dump all of our resources in it. But I just remember him being the candidate that said, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe we are putting people in harm's way for no reason. And I remember hearing that, and I was holding my son, and I just remember I broke down because I was like, my husband's there, and I'm here, and I'm still in the service, and this is crazy. Like, I need to hear somebody talk about this because everybody doesn't want to be deployed right now. Everybody doesn't want to be occupying places where I called my husband, and he was like, I don't even know why we're here. Yeah. No one has even told us what we're doing. No one even gave us like an outline or orders as to what we're doing here. What is the purpose? What is the end goal? No one gave them that. They were just soldiers following orders. So it was really refreshing for me to hear that, and then also to hear him talk about just having families and being one with your country, and saying that yes, we as a people can be better and we can do more if we come together. So I think his message of unity was like, that's kind of what sold me. Like I was super sold on him after the DNC, and then when I did see him win, I do remember crying because I saw a black man with his black wife and his black children, and I was like, this isn't real. This isn't, in my lifetime I got to see a black man as the president, and for 40 plus years we've had all white men, older white men who held this seat. And it's not that they were incapable. It's not that they were ignorant or unintelligent or unable to do their job or direct this country into the right way. It was just seeing that we finally acknowledged that a person of color was capable of doing a job that for all these years has simply been passed off to white males. It felt extremely validating. And seeing Michelle Obama, like after 8 years of seeing her and seeing her poise and her grace and seeing her daughters and how she has been a great mother and seeing how they have come up as young individuals. For me, I have my mom and dad have been together since they were 18, and I have 7 brothers and sisters. I have 4 sisters, 3 brothers. It reminded me of my mother and how my mother always wanted us to just carry ourselves with poise and grace and to be intelligent and articulate. And to see that as a woman of color, I felt like I could do anything. To know that she has degrees from Ivy League colleges, to see that you're capable and it's possible, because you're not told that. You are not told that as a person of color that you can. You're told you're lucky if. That's it. So to see brown people in the most powerful seat in the world, that's like the most surreal experience for me. And I still cannot let go of how in awe I was of President Obama and Michelle Obama and Malia and Sasha. I'm still in awe of what they were capable of doing, and the fact that they were elected twice. It speaks a lot to me because it tells me that people actually wanted that. They needed change, and they needed to see that. And despite his color, because for people of color, it's important to see a person of color, but despite his color, he still was able to appeal to the white majority. So that has to say something about who he was as a person, that obviously a lot of people were following and understanding and empathetic with what his message was, because if it was up to just black people, he wouldn't have gotten into the White House. So they are a very significant family to me.
Yeah, and Michelle at the DNC gave her famous speech that pretty much summarized what you said. When you're watching, as you say, seeing brown people in the highest seat of the land, and that seat, as she put it, is in a house built by slaves. That's amazing. And there's some things that you cannot deny about both of them. Is one, I can listen, not that his message is definitely great. I loved listening to him every time he spoke, but as an orator, I can listen to that man read the nutritional facts off the back of a package of peanuts. It's got 10 grams of salt. Like, I can listen to that man speak all day. But the other thing that I really loved about these two is they have no problem making asses of themselves on late night TV. They have no problem making jokes. They're comfortable with that. And I can't relate to this as a straight white male, but I can only imagine seeing somebody in that spot who also is so confident in who they are and what they look like to be themselves beyond the point that I've ever witnessed a president do. I mean, watching a Michelle on Jimmy Fallon is it's crazy to see a first lady do that. Hillary Clinton didn't do that. Yeah. For damn sure, Bushes didn't. But so now for the time where we kind of start to shit on everything that happened. Who'd you vote for in the primaries of this year?
I am not excited about talking about this because this is not my favorite thing.
I know. But your opinion, that's what we want. We want to know what you think about it.
I voted for Bernie, and then in the election, I voted for Hillary. So I voted for Bernie because I believed that, there were some problematic things that Bernie Sanders did and said, and there's a lot of people that are still not giving him a pass or forgiving him. However, I'm all about letting humans be humans. No, we're not perfect. Yeah. If I had to run for political office, I would not want anybody to dig into my life because I know I've done some terrible things. So I was super into Bernie because I felt like on the grand scale of things, you can't expect a politician to have all your interests in mind, right? Like, you have to go with the person who has the most, the best. That's my opinion. So I went with Bernie, and then I voted for Hillary. I voted for Hillary, and I was very disappointed though, because I knew at the end of the day, after Bernie didn't get the ticket, I already knew she wasn't gonna win. For multiple reasons, but just me being a feminist and me being just an activist, I know how men interpret women, and I knew she wasn't going to get the nomination, and it made me sad because I was like, you know what, we can petition her for stuff, but if we're looking at Donald, you can't appeal to this individual. They're going to do whatever they want to do. And it made me sad. So I voted for Bernie. And then in the election, I voted for Hillary.
We're in the same boat. I understand why it's so hard to talk about this because none of us on the show are diehard Hillary supporters, but we understand that there is a huge difference, when they say the lesser of evils between her and Trump. The lesser is not very less. It's a very big lesser between the two. And you're right. The right wing has taken Hillary to task for 2 years. They had a 2-year head start on her. And Trump can brag about grabbing women. And, we'd rather have that than have to worry about Hillary Clinton's emails. That just makes sense, right? So, and what really sucks for people that voted the way we did is we lost twice. At least that's the way we feel here on the show. We lost twice. We lost with Bernie versus Hillary, and then we lost with Hillary versus Trump, and it was really difficult. I mean, I was just in a state of disbelief. I could not get my head wrapped around the electoral map that I was watching. It just it didn't make sense to me. And going back to that SNL skit, I felt like one of those white people. Yeah, of course. There's all racist bigots in Kentucky. Of course, he's going to take Kentucky. Not a big deal. It was it was a messed up night, but I got two more questions for you. The first one is, what emotions do you think you're going to be going through for? And it's not just about what you are, a female of color and all that, but who you are, an activist, the things that you have made a conscious choice to be. I can only imagine for myself, but what do you think it's going to be like watching Obama have to pass that torch and get on the helicopter and fly out of the White House with who he's passing? I mean, seeing Obama leave, even if it was to Hillary or Bernie, it was going to be, a hard moment, just, even if you got who you wanted, but to hand it to that guy, have you thought about this at all, or what it's going to be for you?
I have, and like I had mentioned earlier, I work with Common Defense PAC, and we have talked about how we feel about the inauguration, and a lot of us, I know for me, I'm still in denial. I am holding out hope. Like, I keep having these moments of, well, maybe they can do this to prevent it. Maybe we can do that to prevent it. Like, I still do not believe or want to accept the idea that Donald Trump is our president, because I did so much.
Yeah.
I did so much prior to, and like, we delivered petitions to all the elected Republican officials to disavow Donald Trump. So this is a tough pill to swallow for me as a woman of color. I know that the night of the election, okay, so this is my truth. The day before, I went to the liquor store and I got 4 bottles of wine, and I was like, if they're gonna win, I'm not gonna drink. If he wins, though, I am going to just drink and be
you
fast.
Only got 4?
I only got 4.
You're being conservative.
And I remember, like, I wasn't watching, and then one of my friends texted me and was like, what is happening? So I turned it on, and I just remember I started crying, and I actually recorded my initial emotions about that moment, because my tears were not just for myself. It was for me as a person that calls myself an activist. I call myself an activist, and I don't really like using that word. I just like to say that I'm a person that's an advocate for change. But I thought about all my Muslim brothers and sisters. I thought about all my Latinx brothers and sisters. I thought about, lesbian, gay, trans, bisexual, intersex. I thought about them. I thought about Asian Americans. I thought about Native Americans, and my heart dropped, because he has spoken out against all of us. There is no one, and including women, there is no one but rich white men that he has not directed his thing to. Even poor white men, middle class white men, he's spoken out against them too. So when I heard that Donald Trump was going to be president, it shook me in a way that I didn't expect it to, because I was like, oh, it's going to be an election and whatever. But I couldn't shrug it off. 4 days mentally, I was not okay. I'm still not okay. I'm in this state of denial, like, well, maybe he won't be president, but then there's this reality that then that means that Mike Pence is going to be our president, and I'm like, okay, so we get Darth Vader 2.0. Like, there is no
Palpatine, yeah.
Right, there is no win in the situation for anyone that does not identify in the 1% as a male. So it's scary. It's really scary for me. I'm still scared. I was scared that day. I was scared by how emboldened I knew that people would become, because I saw how people were before. And even because I did counter demonstrations and whatnot, like I was with a sign out saying, like, love Trump's hate, and, like, elevate above the hate and all this stuff. and then to know that, okay, these people now have been validated in their hatred and in their ignorance, I have to understand that, am I safe in my community? And it was not a very it has not been a very good place for me mentally. I've been very scared. I'm scared of what the next 4 years are going to look like. I don't know how to look at it. I don't know how to consider it, because it's surreal. It does There is no plan. There is no logic to Donald Trump or his cabinet, so I have no idea what to expect. I just know that after he was nominated, my son, who is I'm black and I'm Native, and my son is Mexican, Filipino, Chinese, Japanese, black, and Native. So my son is white passing, but I know that my son told me, and he's in second grade. He was scared to go to school because he was scared that people were going to tell him that he wasn't a citizen, and he was scared for his friends that are not citizens, that they were going to have to leave. And if my 7-year-old child, who also is autistic, can understand that this is a real fear, I don't feel very good about the next 4 years.
Understood. And it's been a roller coaster of disappointment, not just for the losses of Bernie and Hillary, but also I think getting your hopes up. I don't know about you, but for me, it was Trump just mocked a disabled person. Done. Trump just said that McCain isn't a war hero. Done.
Yep.
You know, Trump insulted this, that, and the other thing. That's it. That's the nail in his coffin. Let's rip off his toupee and send him back where he came from. No. Nope.
It never got to that point. And it was so alarming to me because, okay, when he mocked John McCain, I'm like, okay, like before John McCain brought on Sarah Palin, like I really have always enjoyed John McCain and the way he speaks. He's a very eloquent speaker. Mm-hmm. I like to hear him talk. His policies and whatnot are suspect, but I still have really enjoyed to hear him talk. He's very eloquent. And also him being a veteran, like us as vets, we all kind of have this mutual affinity with one another. It's like, you know, we get it. Like, yeah, we get it. So when I heard him mock him, I was like, wow, like that's just rude and is disrespectful. How dare you?
God, and that was early on too.
Oh my gosh. Like, and then when he like mocked the disabled reporter, I'm like, okay, so my son is autistic, and yes, he is high functioning. So, okay, but my sister was diagnosed with cancer, and she went from being, you know, all-state track runner to being in a wheelchair. This is not funny. Mocking someone's abilities or whatever, that's just not cool for me. And I was like, okay, he's done then. And it was still okay. And then for him to go and double down on the sexual assault, I was like, okay, so I was in the military, and MST is a real thing. And for those who don't know what MST stands for, it's military sexual trauma. Unfortunately, a lot of female soldiers endure this shit. And the fact that he was just like, oh, well, you know, I just grab him in the pussy. But then we got to go back to his tweet when he was at the oh my goodness, there was an event where he was around I can't think of the name. He had to do a speaking event, and it was in the presence of all veterans. And a lot of my friends went, actually. I know a lot of people.
It was a forum, I think.
Yes,
hosted
the
on
Commander-in-Chief Forum.
Yeah, right.
Yes, he went to the Commander-in-Chief Forum, and all of my friends that were females that went were also victims of MST. So they brought up the tweet, when he said several years ago, what did these geniuses think would happen if you put males and females together? Right. And I actually participated in a video with MoveOn.org that I said, why did he think that this should happen? We are coworkers. We are comrades. We protect one another. This is not something that we should expect simply because we put on a uniform and stand next to someone that identifies as a gender that's opposite from ours. That is not a reality, and that's not a norm. So for me, like, hearing him like double down on all this problematic stuff, my mind cannot wrap around how he is going to be our commander in chief. because it makes me as a person, I feel afraid. As a person of color, I feel afraid. Right, I got that. But
Right.
also as a woman, I feel extremely afraid, and also as a woman who has survived MST, like, so you mean to tell me that people were wearing shirts that said "grab me
Yeah.
by the pussy," and I'm like, whoa, like, this is scary.
Yeah.
This is scary for those of us who have lived through that experience. It's not funny. It's not like cheeky or a joke or edgy. This is our life and our livelihood, and this is our mental health that's on the line. So 4 years of this, I really, I cannot bring it into my mind what it's going to look like, but it does not look good.
No, and I remember in 2012, Jon Stewart and John Oliver and all these other Bill Maher and all these other people calling for, yes, Trump, please run for president. And I remember on our show we were laughing it off like the rest of the world, everybody besides like Michael Moore and one or two other people. Um, and I remember by November ish, basically saying, "All right, no, all right, I'm scared. You're done. You're no longer worth your own comedy. Shit's not funny anymore." But I guess when you said, how do we that you haven't really accepted this yet. Every time somebody puts out that Obama's now going to look into Russia, messing with the election and trying to get the electorates not to vote for him, it's like, oh, all right, hope, maybe, yes, we can, we may overturn this, but I think we know that that's very far fetched. But I think, at least for me, the silver lining here is we may get more people, and this goes back to the beginning of our conversation, to see the world that people that they don't understand live in. They may get to see it, and I think, and a lot of people have been pointing this out, the other positive side is Hillary Clinton is led the popular vote by over 2.5 million. It's not everybody. It's not. And I think more than racism, I do think he gave a lot of validation to bigots of all shapes and sizes. But I think selfishness and being gullible led to Donald Trump. I think there was a lot of people out there that thought he was going to benefit him. And Van Jones put it perfectly earlier this week. He said there's a lot of people out there that found his comments and actions disgusting, but not disqualifying for selfish reasons.
I also have to say that I think that he appealed to the middle class white majority, and also to the lower class white majority, because he appealed to them and said that we are going to make America come back to the place where you're going to feel empowered. There are a lot of white Americans that feel like people of color get scholarships to college and we get free college, we get free food, we get free housing. These are all lies.
Yeah.
However, there are white people that I know that really sincerely feel like they are disenfranchised. They don't feel like they had a voice until he came along and he was saying things like, I'm going to do this. And he was speaking to stereotypes that they had been taught their whole life. They didn't say them publicly,
right,
but they understood them and they empathize with that. I feel like for those of us who are in this liberal space or whatever, I feel like it's time for us, those of us, to say, hey, look, like I'm okay with hearing other people's ideas and reaching across the aisle. I feel like it's time for us to say, look, I understand how you feel right now. I understand how you have felt through this space. I understand how you felt threatened and how your livelihood, you felt like it was at stake by not having this individual in office. Also, I need you to understand that this individual does not have your best interest in mind. Yeah. This individual, just because he's saying these words, it doesn't mean he's going to follow through with anything that he's saying. So unfortunately, I have understood what a lot of the middle-aged, conservative, white, evangelical majority has felt. I sadly understood it, because if somebody finally came to you and said, I'm going to take your issues and I'm going to put them in the forefront and I'm going to keep saying that this is going to be what's going to make us great, this is what's going to build, this is what's going to make us patriotic, I can get why they fell into that trap.
Right.
End of the day, everyone that I know that voted for him is now like, but wait, he's not doing anything that he said he was going to do. He's breaking all those promises
How's that
already. And
swamp coming?
I'm like, yeah, he's not cleaning out the swamp. He's filling it up. Like he is doubling down on the swamp.
Yeah.
So I think now is really the time. It's not to just be like, told you so, because I really want to be like, I told you so.
Yeah.
I really want to say I told you so, but also I can empathize with the individual that just wanted so badly to have their voice heard.
Right.
They wanted so badly to be relevant and be present in a conversation. I think now is the time for us to just reach across the aisle and say, hey, look, I hear what you're saying. Your issues are important too.
Yep.
So instead of us following someone who's a fascist, let's actually work together and let's band together and say, hey, we've got to get now into our local governments and we've got to start passing legislation this way because I mean our government is going to just be it's going to be what it is for 4 years. We have no control over that, but we can still advocate within our communities for change. And there shouldn't be shame though for the people that voted for him thinking that it was going to be the right idea, that it was the right choice. Some people did it because they honestly they thought it was the best thing for them in their situation.
That is difficult to say, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is.
But we need them, and just to challenge you a little bit, our government doesn't have to be this way for 4 years. We got a chance in 2, and we're not going to get into it right now. But you and I got some stuff coming up on the side that we're going to be putting together. But I want to end this interview with one final question regarding how do we move forward? What can minorities do? What can people like me that are straight white males that want to help, but maybe I've learned a lot through over the last hour on some of the stuff just because I can't relate to things that people that are directly involved can. What can we do? What can Black Lives Matter do? What can our law enforcement do? And what can we do as a whole once all of these people that did vote for Trump, once he gets rid of minimum wage and doesn't bring these manufacturing jobs because Kodak isn't a fucking viable company anymore, you're not getting those jobs back. Once all these people start realizing that, and yes, we don't get to say I told you so, but what is your advice for all of us moving forward on how to fix this, hopefully taking the first giant step in 2018?
Number one thing for me is radical acceptance. Radical acceptance entails you accepting what this is. This is who is going to be our leader. Next, there also needs to be an acceptance of what the underrepresented ethnicities are going through. There is no talking over, there is no minimizing or dismissing. Also, if you are in law enforcement and you call yourself a good cop, then you stand up and you show that. I don't want to see a YouTube video of you passing out ice cream. I don't want to see a YouTube video of you dancing and doing the nay-nay at a picnic. I want to know that when you're out on patrol, that you're not going to profile minorities, people that are brown and black. I actually want to see you challenge your white counterpart and say, they have done nothing wrong. Leave them be. Or if you see someone that is being discriminated against and they have not committed any crime, to intervene and let them go. For all of us, we all have a purpose. We all are a cog in this machine. All of us are capable of doing things. For white folks, I've told all my white friends, it is your job now to speak out. It is your job now to use your privilege to be a barrier. You need to be in the front right now. It's not about explaining what people of color go through. What your job is right now is to say, what we ain't gonna do, we're not gonna be racist. We're not gonna use these terms. I'm not gonna sit here and accept this. I'm not gonna accept that we are going to give these people privilege. It's literally just interjecting and saying, okay, I have to be this person that is going to be intersectional. And you know what? After I use my privilege to be here, I'm going to step back and let everybody else do it. We got to be intersectional right now. This is not just about white folks. This is not just about, this is more than that. There are straight folks. As a Black woman who technically is straight, this is not about me being Black and straight. We also have to include folks that are non-binary. We have to include trans folks. We have to include everyone right now, and all of us who are underrepresented individuals of this society, of this culture. We have to all join together. As much as we hate to say it, America is one. We are one people. We are the individuals that decided to speak out against a government that was oppressing us. So, whether people want to like it or not, we have to come together and we have to continue to speak out against oppressive ideologies. We are being currently oppressed. We have got to speak out and say, okay, how can we make this country greater than what it has been? Because we already been great. We have already been great. We can be greater if we unify, not only from white folks, but also from hetero folks. We've got to do this thing together. And that's where I'm at, is I'm all about, I just want to be present in all of these movements that can affect change on a larger scale. This is not just about me as a Black and Native woman. This is about me as a human being that exists in this country, and there's so much on the line. There is so much legislation. There are reproductive rights. There are civil rights. There are human rights. There are reproductive. There are all these rights that are on the line. We cannot break down into semantics. We have all got to band together and say, this is not one issue. This is a multifaceted issue that all of us need to be concerned about, and all of us are affected by. And unless all of us unify, we're defeated. There is strength in numbers. We are made great by unifying, because Abraham Lincoln said a house divided against itself cannot stand. We have got to unify together, or our messages will fall by the wayside.
Very well said. Crystal, thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to doing this again in the future. And we'll be talking about some of the stuff that AOR and Crystal have going on the side. We got some projects coming up that we will, thumbs up, exactly, that we'll be bringing up here in the very near future. But this is our last episode of the year. Crystal, thanks for coming on. Follow us at AOR Podcasts on Twitter, the Age of Reason podcast page on Facebook, and for everything else, AORpodcast.com. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next year.